And to date, there's 42 different compositions of saliva based on your emotional state.
How dry our mouth is a great window into the tone of our nervous system.
So our saliva drops every time we get in a vehicle, every time we get in a plane. Our level of NO is thought to be the most clearest biomarker of healthy aging.
Welcome to the Vitalist Podcast, where healing meets wonder. This is your space to gain transformative knowledge, deepen your mind-body connection, and awaken your human spirit. If you're ready to connect with your innate potential, embrace life's challenges, and expand what you believe is possible, this is the place. Get ready to slow down, be moved, and live like a true vitalist.
Welcome, Patti.
Thank you.
For 40 years, Patti has worked in both the clinical nutrition and integrative medicine field, bringing a unique blend of clinical, education, holistic, consumer, and PR experience. She has led a high-performance nutrition program for global executives. Patti's work in the field of neuroscience of taste led her to the field of saliva research and how saliva holds a key to nutritional resilience. Founder of Renewal Kit for travelers, she created this travel immune well-being product to take when you fly based on her saliva and immune resilience doctorate research. And lastly, she wrote a children's book with her son, Why is Shirley Unusual?, which inspires kids to thrive eating fresh fruits and vegetables through gardening. So I have to know,
Yes.
what food did you eat that said, wow, I need to get my PhD in the neuroscience of taste?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
It all started when I realized, and I know in your field, you probably would want to crack this nut as well. Why do people like what they like? Why are potato chips so popular? And broccoli is kind of like, you kind of got to get used to it, right?
Right.
So I wanted to study neuroscience of taste from the brain's perspective, no disrespect, but not taste profile from the chefs that make food. And so that's what brought me to neuroscience of taste, was to figure out how to crack the nut of why people like what they like. And then I took a pivot, of course, into saliva work.
Yeah. Well, what did you discover in that?
Well,
early?
You know what? It's funny. I studied over at University of Sorbonne when they partnered with Cordon Bleu, and one of my professors there, I said, I want to study why like what they like, because if we can understand that, healthy eating becomes the wonderful pot of gold because it marries to taste buds. And after I said my diatribe, he looked at me and said, well, sweetheart, you can study taste buds till you're blue in the face. It's all about the quality of your saliva. And then I thought, I have been in this field for 40 years. I have never looked at saliva as contributing to the taste of food. That may
Right.
sound kind of dumb, but
Yeah.
I knew saliva was important for digestion and keeping the mouth clean and the teeth clean, but I didn't realize it was tied to a taste profile.
So what's the spectrum of the quality of saliva?
Oh.
Is it the quantity or is it the quality?
It's actually both.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, there's some sociologists that are studying saliva based on emotions. And to date, there's 42 different compositions of saliva based on your emotional state. So if you're joyful, if you're in grief, if you're angry, if you're sad and happy, all of that changes composition of saliva, which is crazy. And then saliva flow rate, which speaks to quantity, is so tapped into the side of our nervous system that's all about rest, relaxation, digestion, sleep, recovery, rejuvenation. And so the flow rate, if you're not juicy and you don't stay juicy throughout the day, you haven't shifted to this repair side of the nervous system.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's unpack what is in our saliva. So
Sure.
there's 42
Yes.
different profiles.
Yes.
What are the biomarkers that you see in saliva?
Yes. So it comes out into 4 parts.
Okay.
One, it probably doesn't surprise anybody, but there's digestive enzymes in saliva. So it's protein based. So enzymes are protein based. So that's one side of it. Then there's another side of protein, which are key biomarkers, as you just mentioned, for I call it kind of a canary in a coal mine, where it's alerting people to a bigger issue going on. So a biomarker, for instance, nitric oxide. And maybe people have heard that before. It's often tied to cardiac system, which is true. Nitric oxide is a metabolite used in the body as kind of like a warm blanket for the cardiovascular system, for the inflammation system, for our nervous system. So that's one biomarker. And then there's a host of 32 other ones. And now they're trying to partner those protein metabolites to the risk of disease. So there's a researcher out of Michigan right now who's studying the early markers of breast cancer.
Wow.
And she has identified a protein biomarker that does a change 5 years before a mammogram will pick it up. So I think that's exciting.
That is. I mean, it really shows you how saliva, the composition of it, is sort of similar to blood.
Yes.
In that you can pull out so much information of the state of your entire body.
Yes.
Including your nervous system.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Exactly. So I have to name 2 other parts of the saliva.
Yeah.
Don't want to leave anybody on a cliff. So we have the 2 sides to protein, the protein as its digestion and protein biomarker as kind of a canary in the coal mine. Then there's the micronutrient level. So every vitamin, every mineral can be solicited from your saliva.
Wow.
So I believe one day we will all have spit kits at home, and we'll get up in the morning and go, oh, I just don't feel like I'm 100% energy. So we take a spit test and we realize, oh, Patti, you're low in magnesium today. Get going, getting that magnesium in, because we can identify those micronutrients like that. And then last are the immune markers. And this is really right after the pandemic. It broke wide open when we realized in saliva, as you mentioned, it's thought to be a brother to blood. So in the markers of saliva is as beneficial as the markers in blood. So for instance, after the pandemic, when people were concerned about the virus, we could identify it in saliva. So we knew that was a way that we could quickly mark somebody as having a virus or carrying a viral load, if you will.
Wow.
So we didn't have to wait for the blood.
So you're saying our saliva is impacted, the quality or the composition of it is impacted by our emotional state.
Yes.
What other things are going to change the quality
Yes.
of what's in your saliva?
Yeah, that's a super question. And I would say that's $1 million question.
Okay.
We're still trying to identify it. I mean, one thing, there's a great researcher, and let me just say his name, because if anybody out there is so interested in following saliva research, he's the guy. His name is Dr. Paul Slowey, Slowey. And he's out of Seattle, Washington. And what he has uncovered is that everything in saliva is liquid gold. It's just we have to discover where the liquid gold survives, if you will. So some of it, we don't actually have all the answers yet, but I would say that this is truly a trailblazing field. And now we know that little kids, when they're newly born, that they emit a different detection of saliva. And now researchers are trying to identify how that impacts the health of the baby and the maturity of the baby. And we don't have those answers yet. So I was giving a presentation to kids nutrition because I love, getting kids excited about healthy eating. And in it, I mentioned, because I was just embarking on my study, so I mentioned, hey, sometimes we wonder when children reject food or don't have a good eating experience. We never think, oh my gosh, maybe it's related to their saliva level. So that's simply all I said. And afterwards, a young man and his wife walk up, and now the wife starts to cry. And I'm a little unsettled. And the man introduces he and his wife to me and say, this is something we've been to a lot of nutrition presentations and we've never heard before. And we have a middle son whose failure to thrive, which is the worst diagnosis anybody could ever get as a parent. It means that a child is not keeping up with the rate of head circumference and height and weight for their age. And so that's devastating. And the reason the man said that the wife was crying was we're up at Stanford Medical Center. And now when we get together, they call in Child Protective Services and a psychiatrist. They think we're doing something to our child.
Oh, wow.
And that's why my wife is crying. And so they said, we've never really talked about this saliva or thought about it. And so they went home and followed the saliva protocol. And if any of you are eating out there, stop for a second. But what Colin was doing was he was chewing food and spitting it out instead of swallowing it. And so they went home and they introduced, and we can talk about the list of foods that stimulate saliva. And he was Asian descent, so it was easy because he was used to eating all of these delicious soups from Korea before a meal. So he continued that. And then goji berries. So chewing on goji berries, and the first morning he got up and ate a whole egg. And he had not done that ever in his life.
Wow.
So 6 months later, I get an email back, and the dad says, "You've changed our life." In fact, even the pediatrician is embarrassed. Colin is no longer failure to thrive. And he would like to embark on a study studying salivary content in all of his patients because he thinks it's tied to their recovery. Oh, pleased me to no end.
Wow.
So, yeah, and he was 5. The little boy was 5 then, and now he's 9 years old, and he is thriving and doing quite well. So that impacted me like, oh my gosh, I worked with pediatric oncology when I was younger in my career, and it was an opportunity where I saw the pressure of a nutritionist, dietitian, because in order for them to go home, refeeding had to happen, which was they had to eat a complete meal. And sometimes that was so tough on their little system that they just couldn't do it. And now I'm thinking through the lens of saliva, maybe I stimulate their saliva, then feed them, and then we get a different outcome.
So interesting.
Yes. And then the second story.
Yeah, please.
I'll tell it quick.
No.
Is about my grandmother.
Mm.
When she was 97 years old, she was a greeter at Walmart. So she was highly functional, highly alert, a go-getter from Minnesota. But she decided that she wanted to come out to Arizona to be near her family. So she came out and arrived. And we realized her care was a little more intense than what we could do at home. So we got ready to move her into a senior facility. And the first thing she said is she grabbed my hand, 97-year-old lady, and she said, "I'm going to be embarrassed to eat in front of everyone in the dining room because I get this choking sometimes when I eat, and I just don't want to cause all that extra attention." And so we said, "Oh, Grandma, no problem. We'll go down with you. It'll be good experience." We get down there. Goodness, she takes 2 bites and starts to choke. Paramedics are called. She is taking her first ambulance ride to the hospital at 97 years old. Now, thankfully, she was okay, and she returned, but she never went back into that dining room. And then the head director said to me, "Do you know how many times that happens?" And the risk of choke is tied to a decrease in saliva.
Interesting.
So I'm like so anxious to take a senior facility, work with a director and a doctor to say, what does it look like if somebody has a high risk to choke? Could we alter their meals slightly so they could invite more foods into their diet?
Mm-hmm.
Because the director shared with me, when they don't come into the dining hall, malnourishment sets in, social isolation sets in, and they have a higher risk of perishing. So I just saw both ends of the spectrum, little kids and elderly. So I just think there is a lot in saliva that we have yet to uncover.
Yeah. So what's the cause? Like, what's causing dry mouth?
Yes.
Or low saliva?
Yes, that's a great question. And it is tied to this nervous system connection. So if I can just take a few minutes.
Yeah, please.
So I know that you know this so well as probably many of your clients. But we have 2 sides of the nervous system. It's a little like a teeter-totter. We have one side that wakes us all up, which is our fight or flight, our adrenaline system. So it gets us up and gets us going for the day. And then we teeter-totter right before we go to eat in what we call the parasympathetic nervous system, which if you want to look at it like a gas pedal is fight or flight, sympathetic, let's get going. And then parasympathetic is break. Ooh, let's stop and smell the roses. Let's make sure that we're cautious. Let's get a moment of recovery. And so it's these two sides of the nervous system that work together all day long. And what we sense is when we have been what we call hijacked to this fight or flight system, which many of us do. Every ding on our phone, every bit of traffic causes that fight or flight system to come open. That is an indication that we aren't recovering or building our resilience up. So that drop of saliva indicates that you're spending more time into the fight or flight system. So that's one. Medication induced is two. And third is there's 3 glands that produce saliva. And as we age, they just aren't as peppy as they used to be. So that's still not exactly sure why saliva goes down, that doctor researchers are scratching their head as to what is the impetus of that. But we definitely know as you age, you lose the ability to produce more saliva.
Wow.
Yeah. And just as trivia, you produce 2 bathtubfuls of saliva every year.
Wow.
And so that equates to about a liter. So if you think of a Coca-Cola bottle or water bottle of a liter, you produce that much saliva every day. And here's the kicker. You recycle half of it. So now think of saliva as the messenger for the body. Because as things are being produced in saliva, it's communicating down to the rest of the body. That is powerful.
Right. So throughout the day, your saliva is going to be changing.
Yes.
Based on what you're feeling, maybe what
Yes.
you're eating, your stress levels, to communicate to your body how to respond.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're embarking on something with foster kids because, and maybe you're aware, but when a child enters the foster system, that's a very stressful situation. And yet the counselors there say we really don't know what kind of condition a child is in. We can ask, how are you doing? And likely they begin to shut down or say fine or no or yes, just simple words. But if we could measure their saliva and understand the content of where they're at, we can know better what tools in our toolkit we can get to soothe them and quickly shift them into the rest and recovery side of the nervous system. So something so silly is we now give them a lollipop when they come in for an intake interview because the suckling on that lollipop soothes them enough to shift over to the side of the nervous system that's about rest and recovery and relaxation.
Wow.
Yeah.
What are other things people can do?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, sucking on lozenges or cough drops make a big difference. So even any lemon drops make a big difference. As I mentioned earlier, chewing on goji berries or chewing on dried cranberries. So one of the institutions we're working with is having cups prepared with a little bit of dried cranberries. So the child, when they come in, get some dried cranberries, chew on it, produce saliva, shift to the side of the nervous system where they can think, they can be relaxed, and they can feel hopeful.
Now, is it the chewing or is it the dried fruit that causes saliva?
Excellent question. It's combo. It's both. It's the chewing because the mastication sends a signal to the brain, hey, make a shift to the nervous system. We got to be digesting and processing food now. That's number one. And second, it's the tartness of dried cranberries and goji berries that stimulate the glands that produce saliva to get going, to pump out more.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what are your thoughts on chewing gum?
Yeah, interestingly enough, chewing gum does not produce the same results. It may relax some people, but it doesn't produce that level of salivary release that comforts us for the side of the nervous system.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And what are I know your background is in food.
Yes.
So what foods can people either use before eating or during a meal to increase this salivation?
Yes. Woo!
While they're eating.
I love these questions.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun. It's a body of foods called sialagogues. Again, there's 4 components of foods. First is the chewing and mastication of dried fruits, specifically dried cranberries and goji berries, and pomegranate seeds appear to elevate the release of saliva. The second category, probably no surprise to anybody out there, are crunchy fruits and vegetables. So celery and carrots and watermelon all enhance the quality of saliva. Thirdly are fun teas. So taking a squeeze of lemon in warm water produces more saliva. Any citrus, any combination of cinnamon tea, robois, African red bush tea, chamomile tea, nutmeg tea, things like that. And then the fourth category are kind of the most fun. These are where we ethnically look out at different foods and anything that's umami-based soup. So mushroom soup, miso soup, different Korean bases to that soup. Even bone broth is thought to be rich. And so I don't know this to be a fact, but I believe that in everything that we've discovered on how wonderful bone broth is, I do believe saliva can claim some ownership in there, in that it helps the healing process of the body, because the side of the nervous system that increasing saliva triggers is the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest, relaxation, rejuvenation, regeneration. So I believe bone broth contributes to us sliding over into that nervous system a little quicker. Now, having said that, if there are any researchers out there want to study it, please, let's do it, because I'm just making it up as I go along.
Yeah. I'm curious, does the composition of your saliva make you crave these foods?
You know what? That's not been shown, but that's a good thought.
Yeah.
Honestly, I do know that when you're ill, and maybe you can verify this with you and your patients, when you're in, you want warm liquids, and you tend to go through soups, teas, things like that. And so I wonder if there isn't some kind of compelling interest in the saliva picture, which is just not studied yet.
Yeah.
So there is a symposium in Italy in April that I'll be going to. And so I will definitely probe some of the professors there to see what they think.
Yeah, there's got to be something intelligent, right?
Exactly.
When I crave chocolate,
Yes.
I probably need magnesium, right?
Exactly. I like the way you're thinking.
Yeah. So how do you coach someone? So how dry our mouth is a great window into the tone of our nervous system.
Yes.
When should people be tuning into how much saliva they have in their mouth?
But I would say there's 4 times in a day that you can just check your saliva level to increase your awareness, because as you know, that's always number one, is get your awareness higher, and then you can develop the strategies. So the 4 times in a day to check is when you first wake up in the morning. And if you wake up drier, then instead of going for the cup of coffee right away, maybe you stop and go, I'll have a warm glass of water with lemon in it. I'll stimulate saliva in order to shift that nervous system flow. Right before lunch, double check. How stressful has your morning been? Where are you on saliva? Because hydration does make a difference. Unfortunately, darn it, I wish it was 1-to-1. Like if you're dry mouth, you're dehydrated. So quickly drink. And it's not exactly so simple yet. But right before lunch, right before dinner, and right before bed. And at each moment, if you sense you're dry, then there's 3 things you can do. One is reach for one of these sialagogue foods. The second is kind of fun, and if you're game, we can try it.
Yeah.
There's in Ayurvedic medicine, there is in traditional Chinese medicine, there is a score of what you do with tongue movements to produce more saliva.
Oh.
I welcome everyone to join us.
No, let's try it.
Okay. There's 4 tongue positions. So maybe we can do the tongue positions just so you get familiar with them. And then we're going to do it 6 times. I'll direct you into the movement. But the first is put your tongue at the roof of your mouth. Drop your tongue down behind your front teeth. Go to the right, go to the left, and then up at the top. So that's the 4 positions: up, down, right, left. So now, if you're willing, we do that 6 times, and it does not have to be precise. So
Okay.
I'll count it. So
Okay.
up, down, right, left. Up, down, right, left. Up, down, right, left. 3 more. Up, down, right, left. Up, down, right, left. Up, down, right, left. 1 more. Up, down, right, left. Now, do you feel juicier?
I do.
I know. It's crazy, right? It's crazy.
So this is sort of a nervous system hack too, right?
Yes.
Now I'm more parasympathetic.
You are so right. Yes.
Yeah.
And then the third thing you can do at any of those 4 points during their day, if you realize you're low in saliva, do a quick audit. Like, how hydrated am I? How stressed did I get with that phone call, with that meeting? Or how much pinch points do I have the rest of my day? Because you're nourishing then the fight or flight nervous system instead of the rest, relaxation, rejuvenation side.
Right.
So at that point, you might decide to do a breathing technique.
I'm curious, how do other senses play into saliva and our ability to taste? Because I know that we've taken people on a journey of just imagining
Yeah.
a lemon
Yeah.
and their mouth starts watering.
Yes.
So can you talk to the neuroscience of that?
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. So I see 2 parts to the brain. So correct me if you want to go in any other direction. What I call the mayor of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, helps us really integrate new information with old information. It helps us navigate in our day. But we have another part of the brain, which is called the reptilian brain or the primal brain. And it's what keeps our heart beating, our lungs breathing, eyes moist. We pay no attention to that. That just happens automatically. So interestingly enough, these 2 types of brains compete for who's in the driver's seat all day long. And when we have the primal or the reptilian brain in place, that's where it says, cut down saliva. We got bigger issues to fry today. And so that's part of the compensation that happens is all day long, all of our senses are detecting how friend or foe our environment is. And so I think all of us have a chance to check our awareness to see how highly reactive we are. So for instance, I tend to be jumpy, so anyone can scare me. And I realize every time I'm doing that, I am forcing or hijacking my nervous system to put the fight or flight system in place. And I need to calm myself down not to have that experience. And our visual system is highly, highly effective at shutting down saliva. Our nasal passages is one of our oldest systems, and it smells sense first that starts saliva. All of the senses impact our saliva.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, when I was studying it for travel, I saw that it was jet engine noise vibration that our detective system picked up on, kind of like when puppies or dogs start howling or barking and we're like, what's the sound? And it's because they hear a higher decibel sound, right?
Sure.
So that's what's happening to our system. So all of our senses are engaged, and that shuts down saliva. And we find when we drive in a car, the same thing happens, because you have all these micro movements in your spine keeping you steady on the road. Never mind your visual system, your hearing system, your tactical system, making sure that your tires are on the road and you're stopping at the stop sign. All of those are engaged. So our saliva drops every time we get in a vehicle, every time we get in a plane.
Wow. So regardless of whether I'm a nervous flyer,
Yes.
my body is
Yes.
going to be affected by travel.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly. In fact, one amazing physician, Dr. Jeff Drobot, here in the Valley, is a bioregulatory medicine doc. And he said, Flying is the most unnatural condition we put our body through.
Wow.
And, I never think of traveling that way.
Yeah.
Right? And so my goal is, by creating this kind of link to saliva, is that I'll put fun back in travel.
So tell us about this product that you founded. Yeah. We carry it here in Kinfolk. Keiko and I, we don't travel without it. I mean, I feel like it's made a huge impact. I'm not an anxious flyer, but I always feel so exhausted after we travel, whether we're going through different time zones or not. So can you share a little bit more about why is my body responding like that, and then what you created to help people adapt to the stress?
When we sit on a plane, again, not many people think about it, but you're seated there, and our lymphatic system is kind of like our trash system. And there's no valve, there's valves, but there's no pump in there. So the only way the lymphatic system moves is for you to move. So you can imagine if you're seated there for 20 minutes or 20 hours, it's pooling. So you're turning that delicious mountain spring river into a swamp. So that's number one. And secondly, what we realize is when we shift our nervous system, and I know this is much of your work, is when we stay high in the fight or flight system, we don't get a chance to regenerate. We don't get to plug in our immune system and our digestion. They kind of go dark. And of course, it's not 100%. So when we land, part of the issue coming back online is that our systems are waking up to the fact that they can get moving again.
Right.
So that's why often many people get sick when they travel, is their immune system has laid dark for as long as they're on a plane, and so they end up getting sick. And then a lot of digestive issues, because again, I heard this from an aeronautical medicine physician from Mayo. He said, when your ears pop when you fly, right? You know that?
Yeah.
He goes, every cell farts. And so he's like, that's happening all the time you're flying.
Wow.
Is that little degassing. And that's extremely stressful for the body.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what's your flying routine?
I would say I hydrate before I get on the plane, and then I take the Renewal Kit.
Yeah. So tell me about
What's
in the Renewal Kit.
Sorry, I kind of took
No,
a
you're
long
good.
portal down there. So I created it. One is there's a lozenge, a chewable lozenge, which is essential oils in the lozenge which stimulate saliva flow. So in a way, you get on the plane, you're chewing the saliva. Now your nervous system is, ooh, I can chill. I can be nice and relaxed. I got adequate saliva. I'm good. Then second, there's a whole food capsule, which is elderberry. And maybe many people have heard that elderberry is so good for respiratory immune system. So it kind of is like it puts a shield, if you will. I call it kind of a personal trainer for your immune system. And then I think it's the sassy third product that is offering so many benefits. It's broccoli sprouts. And it's like a bowl of broccoli sprouts, quite frankly, because it's whole food based. But in it are two sassy nutrients. I'm sure you talk a lot about them, glutathione and sulforaphane. And really those two nutrients are a 1-2 punch for us, our cells, to take out metabolites, and you help process all of the foods that your cell is breathing and digesting. You help pass that through. So I do think that's part of the benefit, is when you land, you've had enough ingredient on board, if you will, for your immune system and your digestive function.
Right. And your product is so unique because you take it right when you're departing and then as you're landing.
Yes.
Yeah, just to support your nervous system,
Yes.
your immune system, and your
Yes,
digestive
exactly.
system.
And the neat thing is we worked with a lot of Olympic athletes, so we didn't want any contraindication for their Olympic boards. So it's all whole food based. So it's like eating a bowl of lemons and limes from essential oils, eating a bowl of elderberry. I don't know if anyone's done that. It's kind of like peeling your cheek off your teeth because it's so tart. And then a bowl of broccoli sprouts. And that's what you're doing as you embark on the plane, and that's what you're doing when you land.
Wow.
So
I love it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And my whole goal for creating it was to be value added to this travel industry, to make other people serve their customers better. So I'm envisioning that we'll be lined up at a hotel. It'll be an option in somebody's room to take it before they travel again, or with an airline. Instead of ordering hummus, you can order a renewal kit for travelers.
Yeah. And do you make any modifications to that protocol if it's like a 2-hour flight versus an 8 versus one with multiple connections? Do you take more than one pack, or is it just...
Well, it's all of the above.
Okay.
How that to confuse people. Interestingly enough, it was designed where every leg of a non-stop flight, you take one packet.
Okay.
So, and it doesn't matter if it's from here to LA, only a 20-minute flight, right? Or off to Dubai, 20-hour flight. It's what's happening to you as you embark on the tube from a nervous system perspective. Right. So that's why it doesn't matter the distance, which I know is kind of funky when people are used to thinking of time zones and thinking of how to support their body through the time zones. We're equipping the body to be able to handle whatever the plane ride throws at it from a nervous system perspective. So it's a little bit different look at it. And then secondly, as you mentioned, if we're doing a nonstop, let's say we're going to Japan. So let's say we're going from here to Honolulu, changing planes, and then going on to Tokyo. In that case, ideally, and there's no contraindication about overdosing per se, if you will, but you would take a packet from this flight to Honolulu and then a packet from Honolulu to Tokyo.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So ideally, and we work with a lot of flight attendants, so they're taking 5 and 6 packets
a day.
A day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're reporting, I'm very happy, they're reporting their resilience, like they're getting off the flight where normally they would drag themselves to a hotel. Now they're like, hey, let's go listen to music. Let's go have something to eat.
Yeah.
It's a whole different perspective.
Yeah, and it just highlights the power of food.
Yes.
It really is information going
Yes.
into the body.
I love that.
So let's switch gears
Yes.
and talk a little bit about how can people, how can they kind of take back the curtains and look into their own saliva today? Like, is there any
Yes.
testing that they can do at home? Because I think it's sort of this new frontier of
Yes.
personalized preventative medicine.
Yes.
But what can people be looking for or doing
Yes.
at home?
Thank you. Brilliant question. There are 2 saliva institutes. So right now, I would actually encourage folks to sign up for their newsletter, because through that, you will get more information. And one salivary institute is out of UC Irvine. And it's actually called just the Salivary Institute of UC Irvine. So that's easy.
Yeah.
And then the second salivary organization is out of India. And that's run by a marvelous woman, very brilliant. She's a dentist by training, which I love, the synergy about well-being, about the use of food, and then also about how we nourish our mouth, right? And so she runs a Saliva Institute, and it's just called a Saliva Institute of India. So that's where you can sign up and get more information. Beyond that, right now, there's a couple companies putting out saliva tests. There's one called Everlywell, which is a line of spit tests, if you will, to indicate everything from food intolerances to your risk of vitamin D levels, to there's some more nuances in immune. Now, they're at the infancy. I'm so glad they're out there. But just know that don't be frustrated when you look at the laundry list if there's something on there that you wanted to find out that you couldn't. And then secondly, I would say, and I want to invite you to take it with me, to do a spit test of knowing where a biomarker in protein, as we mentioned at the beginning, is called nitric oxide, or NO, if you want to be quick and hip.
Yeah.
And our level of NO is thought to be the most clearest biomarker of healthy aging out. And it's done on a scale. So the more pink you are at the end of it means more optimal levels of nitric oxide you have. So, and also I always say, check your mindset, because it's not pass or fail, good or bad. It just is.
Right.
So, so anyway, yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
And that's from a company called Human, Humann. So you can order up these travel strips right away. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a little spittle, which is Hippocrates' word for saliva,
Okay.
and you're going to put it on your finger.
Okay.
You're going to take that finger and put it on the pad on the strip.
Okay, so I can put it in my mouth.
Correct. Ideally, no, because it changes the astringent on this pad.
Okay.
So, yes.
And then how long do I hold
And then
it?
you can let go with the finger. Just fold over the pad. So take the other end and fold it over the pad and just like let it kiss for just a few minutes. And then you will see, I don't know if this shows up so well, but there's a scale gradient of colors. And the whole idea, again, it's really just showing you at this moment where you are with nitric oxide. And I can say already, you've probably been up for a couple hours. You've already done another podcast. So you've already flipped on your sympathetic nervous system, your highly alert nervous system for quite some time. That utilizes nitric oxide.
Right.
So if you're a little low, don't feel bad. It's just you've had a busy morning. So what would you say?
I would say I'm sort of in the low.
Okay. That's
Which is
okay.
great.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Now I know.
Yeah. I love that attitude.
Yeah.
That's exactly what to do. Now, the cool thing is what you can do for lunch is you can now sit back and go, I'm going to take some foods that can contribute back to the bath of nitric oxide. So beets are number one.
Yum.
Okay. Unsweetened cranberry juice. Taking pecans, any kind of nuts, any kind of deep greens. I'm thinking right now of a delicious salad at the herb box. So, but you can see now by knowing your level, you can make a twist and turn to emphasize increasing your nitric oxide for the day.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yes.
How often would you recommend testing this throughout the day?
Right now, most physicians are saying once a day.
Once a day.
And
What time?
ideally in the morning.
Morning.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then there's a fun, and I apologize because I don't have the link right with me, but Dr. Zach Bush, he's a regenerative physician, but also very much into soil. He's got a 4-minute movement routine that elevates nitric oxide.
Wow.
And it's only 4 movements. So it's something that, again, let's say you just calibrated a little lower. You're like, I don't have time to grab something to eat right now. I'm going to do these 4 movements and I'm going to boost my nitric oxide. And over the day, as we consistently increase our nitric oxide, we are healthy aging our body.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Where can people find and connect with you?
Sure. Yes. So LinkedIn is always good. So Patti Milligan there. And then if anyone is interested in the travel kit, it's online at renewalkit.com.
Okay.
Renewal, just spelled like it sounds, kit.com.
Yep. Beautiful. And then you also have a TED Talk.
I do have a TED Talk, yes.
Okay. We will link that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Well, thank you so much
Oh,
for
thank
coming
you,
in and
making
spending
this
your
so
morning
easy.
with us.
Okay.
It's been super insightful.
If you like this episode, share it with a friend. For more conversations filled with awe and wonder, be sure to subscribe to the Vitalist podcasts. Till next time.